Yeah, very good. Jump in.
Yeah, now feel free to adjust the seat to your liking.
Yeah, sure, that'll be good.
Yeah. And that's just for you there if you clip that on somewhere sensible. It was actually sunny.
Yeah, it's a bit changeable, isn't
until
it?
I was halfway over here and I had to stop and put the roof up. Otherwise we would have been doing that.
This is what it is.
Anyway, all good. It's still a bit of fun.
There you go.
Because it's 6.2 litre naturally aspirated and brand new, doesn't hurt either.
There you go. V8.
So, yeah.
So is it the standard Stingray? Has it got the Z51 package?
It's got the Z51 package and it's the LT3, so it's the it has the many fancy bits on it. Upgraded brakes and cooling, and of course it's got the top as well, which I may or may not get over.
Right.
But
you engine Corvette.
Yeah, that's right. Now after this, they're making a there's an electric one.
Yeah,
and
I saw that. The E-Ray, is it, or something?
The E-Ray, yeah. And I think it's going to be fun because it's still got an engine. It's going to be a different thing. And this is almost 500 horsepower. I think it's 390 odd kilowatts.
Right.
And it's just about all a mortal can use,
right.
I think. So I know that you can get more powerful cars, but this is just a whole lot of fun. Anyway, welcome to Driving Ambition. I want to chat through, learn a bit about your pretty amazing business career, and you probably had some interesting vehicles in that time as well. So I looked back through. If we go kind of backwards in chronological order, then you can start filling me in. So you've been with you've been running the warehouse group before that, Sears, and previous to that, Foot Locker. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
And what happened? If you go all the way back to the beginning, what was your first real career job?
Well, so I've always been in retail, and I started my career at M&S straight out of doing postgrad in marketing.
Yeah.
And,
is this in London?
This was in London, and I got an interview there because frankly I needed a job, and my girlfriend at the time, her father was the CEO of their biggest supplier.
Oh,
and
right.
he got me an interview.
Oh, yeah.
And
I think nepotism is right at the bottom.
It's all right. When you first started out, I needed some help, but retail was not on my mind. And having done a postgrad in marketing and specialised in advertising, I wanted to go to ad agencies. So I interviewed with a few ad agencies, and they were all interested in me and said, "Look, we really like you, but we're not sure what to do with you. Go get some retail experience. We've started to get these big retail accounts, and we don't know what to do with them."
And you were what, early 20s at the stage, me?
Yeah, it's 22 coming in.
Okay.
Postgrad. And, so I went to M&S, and I stuck it out for a year, and I absolutely hated it. After
was it dealing on the floor?
No, it was in the head office.
Okay.
But after 4 years of being taught to think for myself, but M&S at the time, at that level, all they wanted was automatons, and they did not want anyone to have an opinion about doing things differently. They just wanted people to execute. And I'm sure that a lot of that stuff now is automated, and so they don't need that role at all with AI in their future. But anyway, stuck it out for a year, and then went to Debenhams for 3 years, the old British department store. It was just after it had been acquired by the Burton Group, and it's they were determined to change this sort of fusty old British department store. So that gave me a lot of scope, and started to learn.
And were they looking for some new ideas? Did they welcome your input?
They did, and there was this sort of bespoke computer system that no one knew how to run, and I learned how to use it, and got really interested in how you automate retail. And
this layer road.
And so, long story short, had a number of different roles in retail. Always on the sort of product buying side, from the number side of product buying side.
Was that strategic, or is it like What's the season?
Yeah, I mean, what interested me about it was, and this is at really the core of my my philosophy is knowing the customer. And even then, whilst it was only one of the ways to know the customer, it was really about how you interpret the product data to be able to make informed decisions about product. And so customer and product have always been things that interested me in retail.
Yeah, right. So how long were you at Debenhams?
So I was at Debenhams for 3 years, and then I went to River Island.
I don't know that one.
Yeah, so River Island is sort of young fashion, and I bought denim, which is great fun.
Oh, yeah.
Mixture of sort of fairly domestically sourced for short term.
Yeah.
And overseas source, so overseas trips to places like Korea at the time. A lot of denim was made in Korea.
Yeah. I guess it follows the cotton industry.
Yeah, sure. But equally, one of our big suppliers was in Ireland. And he was a great guy.
Okay.
So I remember one time he sort of, come over, I'm experimenting with some new washes. So we end up going out sort of the back of the factory, and he's got a washing line hung out with.
So they're literally making it there.
Pulls out a shotgun. This is still at the time of the troubles.
So that's literally how they make the holes in the jeans.
I call this shot blasted.
Yeah, wow.
Can't have a go.
Okay. So
I've had a lot.
acid's old school, now it's a shotgun.
Yeah,
that's good.
So I've had a lot of fun over the years. I guess, after a number of different companies, the big break for me was we were hired into Foot Locker. So after sort of being UK based, Foot Locker Europe, where I was hired to run all of the product planning, was in the Netherlands. And so I moved to Amsterdam, and this is in 1998. Spent a couple of years there, and then moved to Florida. Another part of the company.
Very different cultures in London, Amsterdam, Florida.
Yeah, and then I went and ran the Canadian business out of Toronto.
Mm-hmm. How did you get these opportunities? So these were internal moves. Yeah. And you were originally hired into. How does that happen? Do they identify you as a high performer? What is it that stood out?
So I've always been successful in terms of making money.
Right.
Just really gets it. And it draws attention to you. But I benefited, I reckon, from Marcus. The guy that hired me to Europe, who then was the guy that moved to Florida to run their businesses.
Like a sponsor.
He needed my help. He'd been there for about 6 months, and he said, "Look, I need your help. The product side's really messed up. Come over and join me."
You get excited by a challenge like that, an opportunity.
Absolutely. My greatest fear is boredom. And,
so you're not like a hold the tiller steady kind of guy. Right.
And so the next opportunity after Canada was running a company called Laney Foot Locker, which had really lost its way.
Okay.
This is where I really started in what's been the theme of my career, which has been transformation. Identifying what's wrong and taking a strategy to business.
And was this an offshoot of Foot Locker itself?
It was, yeah. It's sort of supposedly for women to supposed to be sort of a way of selling sneakers and athletic apparel to soccer moms in a less threatening environment.
Okay.
And it planned to be about 600 stores, but really lost its way in product and.
Did you say 600 stores?
Yeah.
Wow.
Not performing, and so I just stripped out the whole thing, figured out a way to do a low-cost shop fit, and rebranded a new Lady Foot Locker, new colour, and just consistency of merchandising.
So that must be an interesting thing to do, because you're starting with something that's got a whole lot of, I guess, its background. It's got scale, but it's lost its way.
Yeah, generally less is more. And
so you pull things out, and so consistency and direction, is that right?
Yeah, that's right. The other thing was the culture. They've been losing for so long. They really had, a very negative culture. They were just waiting to get closed.
And how do you address that? Is that changing people?
In that case, it was
but I bring you past lots of retail here.
It was really about getting focused, and I got them doing this project around, who the core customers were.
Yeah.
And so I really had them build out and identify 5 different customer stereotypes. And,
Okay.
I had to
So
sort of
some of the
think about-
basics
Yeah, I mean,
that we
think
see
about-
now.
Yeah, but sort of going a little bit deeper on the psychographics, like, sort of what's the favorite TV program, what
Okay.
motivates them, who else they like, some musical tastes. And, the irony is that all of the most productive stores were right in the same molds as all of the big Foot Locker stores, which is very urban. And, so
you can start to get
differentiating
data.
the assortment between, the urban stores and the suburban stores, who the customer was in each of those stores was really
So did you
critical.
close a lot of stores, did you?
So I closed a few, but also opened quite a few. But it was more about taking these stores into fixing the processes, the in-store environment, and the merchandise.
Yeah, right. And how long were you there?
So I was there for a couple of years. This is in New York, and then I got promoted to run all of the domestic businesses. We just acquired a business called Foot Action, which was our biggest competitor. And so part of the job was merchandising that in, and figuring out how to differentiate that offer, and make it part of the group. So I was several years in that role.
Do you enjoy that integration?
Yeah, I mean, so it was running all of the sort of US domestic business, which is about 3,500 stores
Oh, wow.
time, and it's a good $6 billion in revenue, and
that's a list of companies.
it's a public company, and with hindsight, I ended up leaving there after 10 years of sort of moving around the world. And the backdrop of a lot of the last 3 or 4 years was a fairly well publicized corporate spat with Nike, where Nike, who's the biggest supplier of the business, took away the ability to access all the profitable goods.
And was that when they were opening their own brand
It
stores?
was more about them objecting to our promotional activity. When things were tough, we were aggressive in promotion. They didn't want to get discounted. You can't, strictly speaking, say that.
Right.
It's deep price fixing. And so there was a lot of shuttle diplomacy fixing that problem.
So you spent a bit of time in Seattle or Portland, there, based. Is that Portland?
Yeah. To that very was the English.
Yeah.
And then after that I had a 1 year not compete. I just had my son. It was interesting timing as well, 2007, 2008, and finally had a child, and suddenly occurred to me that I'd done well in my career, but 20 years of retail.
You look up and a lot of times
you look
passed.
up and yeah, but more to the point, suddenly there was this new thing called e-commerce. This is 2007.
Right, so it's pretty real by then.
Yeah, so time of the GFC as well. A lot of disruption started to happen. Like Amazon and all the rest of it. And Foot Locker really didn't concentrate on e-commerce. Its e-commerce business was run out of this mail order company they acquired in Warsaw, Wisconsin, and it was really an afterthought. It was all about the stores. And I suddenly sort of woke up, had one of these sort of middle of the night epiphanies when I woke up, and it was like, oh my god, I'm an anachronism.
I'm the old guy.
Yeah, in my early 40s.
With your bricks and mortar.
And so, I spent a lot of that time studying and reading up and talking to people about e-commerce and digital. And started to look around, and I guess the fundamental question in my mind was, what's next for legacy retail?
Yeah.
In the age of Amazon and digital e-commerce. And so started talking, as I looked for my next role, I started looking for companies that were doing interesting things in that space. And one of them I came across was company of Sears Holdings, which was an amalgam of the Kmart business and the Sears business, acquired by this hedge fund mogul, Eddie Lampert. And he was making some interesting noise about digitizing those businesses and that personalization and, and monetizing the data of the relationship. So ended up talking to him, had a long conversation with him.
So that's quite early to be thinking about that. A lot of people just tossed something up online and people bought, and that's all. I mean,
right? that was the real benefit of having a bit of time to stop and think about it.
So you started learning, I mean, I assume coming from marketing, you had a fair bit of understanding about data anyway, but is that when you really got into the technology?
Yeah, sort of, on the early edge of, most companies are still calling it best multi-channel. Thinking about e-commerce as being their biggest store, as opposed to, Eddie, who's quite progressive and was thinking about it, who really wanted to sort of treat it as, a homogenized whole, what we now call omni-channel, and what I call integrated retail, where you recognize and know the customer.
Because then they can support, because I definitely remember in early 2000s, people were kicking off with a store and they would say, well, it's a store, it's a competition.
Right.
Which means you don't get support. Yeah. And that's where you go into a store where it is integrated and you really see the benefits, don't you? So that was kind of early 2000s.
Yeah, 2007, 2008. And, I started at Sears, running the footwear business, background in Foot Locker, and, in-house the Kmart business that was previously run as a concession. Made a lot of money out of doing that. And, then I gained the home business and then the fine jewelry business, mattress business, and finally the apparel business. And the apparel business was headquartered in San Francisco, the design studios in New York, sourcing office in Hong Kong, and sourcing across Asia.
So was it almost just like a collection of bits of operation strung together under a brand?
Well, sort of, yes, more sort of. Eddie thought that the businesses should be run separately and compete, and which is an interesting philosophy. But sort of each of the businesses run within the formats as sort of independent businesses, which can look a bit disjointed from the customer perspective. Later on in his regime, he did put some format leadership in to make it more consistent. But the issue for me is whilst I was successful, I found that I was away 250 days of the year. My family was living in Chicago, and my business was headquartered, and had a young family. Had an apartment in San Francisco, permanent hotel suite in New York. Once a month, I was in Hong Kong. Every 3 months, I'd be in Europe for a week, shopping trend, and then take it to the Orient and recently places like Bangladesh.
Yeah.
And India to interpret it.
For buying.
Yeah. And so, it got to the point where, I just figured out, I was missing my family's lives.
And you'd had that break where you had lots of time with a new child, and so you'd gone straight into the...
And this was sort of
busy
7-8 years later. And so, candidly, I hadn't been thinking about a move to New Zealand when I was approached about the job at the warehouse. And it's
and did that come through a search?
That came through a headhunter, and initially wrote off out of hand. But the more I looked at it, the more interesting it became, because firstly, it was a market that was still pre-Amazon. I'd spent the last 7-8 years in Sears sort of figuring out how to fight back against the disruption of Amazon. And so on the one hand, you sort of back yourself to be able to come up with a solution, a way of resisting it. The other thing was, when I came and visited New Zealand, I spent quite a lot of time at the board, and when I did stores with Stephen Thimble, thought Stephen was a great guy, and most billionaires like me, and really focused on sustainability and wanting to do right by New Zealand, passionate retailing. And so, it's been...
How long does a process like that take? I mean...
So it was, I guess, relatively quick, about 3 months. I came over for a weekend and, brought my wife, who had a chance to look at Auckland, liked Auckland, It happened relatively quickly. I think it's bond psychometric tested. It's been a negotiation and most of it. So that's what brought me to New Zealand.
And give us a year now.
Yeah, this was in December 2015. Okay, so December was interesting, having just started to go into yet another Chicago winter, which is can be pretty brutal. To sort of pop off a plane and find myself in Auckland, and it was one of those summers which started early. Remember that morning going, wow, this is fortuitous. Life is good. So it's been a very interesting 8.5 years.
And what did you find? What did you find when you got to the warehouse? Did it live up to your expectations of a brand portfolio?
Well, there's been a number of different attempts to solve for the future of the warehouse group after Steve retired in 2001. And and again, I can't go too deeply into it, but so failed attempt to go into Australia, failed attempt to get into food. Previous regime bought a whole bunch of companies, Noel Leeming, Torpedo 7 Group. There's nearly 20 constituent companies, sort of loosely organised, around 6 business units, and all run independently, which made no sense for the scale, and 250 stores in total.
Well, some of those have come out of, Noel Leeming came out of private equity, was it?
Right. And there was also an ill-fated financial services business.
Oh, yeah.
So, the first order of business was really to agree with the board, the strategy. It was clear to me that we needed to fix the fundamentals of retail. But again, sort of on the product side, product buying and merchandising and operation processes. And equally, there was no investment in systems or digital. So digital critically urgent and important. So we took quite a lot of time to agree the process. And when we sort of got into consolidating, we moved a lot of the functions into the center. So, one HR function, one finance function, one marketing function, and left the merchandising and operations in those businesses. Managed to sell off the financial services business, which had the potential to really direct cash flow, ill-conceived business.
Interesting.
And then so saw some immediate benefits from centralization, but really not moving fast enough. And my great fear was war around digital disruption. And so looked around at how to get the company to execute more quicker, and talked to a few professional services businesses. Ended up bringing McKinsey, who used their RTS process. Their RTS process, if you don't know, is where they come in, they do an assessment of the business, and they have to be convinced that there's enough potential upside. The board has the fortitude to believe in the CEO's vision, and then they sort of have to discuss it with their board, and they take a share of the upside.
Oh.
So that was very good and very profitable.
Was it a certain area of focus, or was it very much holistic business?
All about sort of bringing out all of the inefficiencies, sort of everything in, and sort of very tightly tracked processes, and sort of people hated having to look at, to be interrogated every week by these McKinsey consultants about, why haven't you executed?
It's like someone in a better suit asks you an accountability question. It's always scary, right?
Yeah. And so, whilst it was very good for business and released a lot of cash on a one-time basis, and did some processes and execution in place, people did not like it. So I started to look around at different executional opportunities. Came across Agile, and all the tech companies use Agile and were born Agile. But here in New Zealand, there are a couple of companies like Spark, for example, that started using it for running their whole business. And for all the fact that Spark is, effectively as telco, it is a technology company. It's hadn't really been done in retail. So I took the board on a trip to Scandinavia and Europe, and we looked at some Agile companies in action. They said it's very interesting. We then took the leadership team on a similar trip, and they said we've got to do this, especially as we sort of start to execute against the digital. So that was something that enabled us to take out cost and reduce all the layers of hierarchy. One of the curses of the business is that, someone that might have originally been good at buying, in order to get paid more, had to become a buying manager, buying director, GM of buying, so far away from the product. And so Agile really strips out structure and creates much more customer-centric focus.
When did you first start to get benefits from bringing in this process?
Pretty immediately, and with all the planning, and Agile requires sort of cross-functional groups to meet and use whiteboards and post-it notes and all the rest of it. And we planned this big kick-off at Spark Arena. A week before that happened, COVID happened. And so suddenly we had to flip everything and did everything digital. And
it almost underlines your point, though, doesn't it?
And that's proved prescient, with everything that subsequently hybrid work. And so every meeting was an online or in-person meeting. And so we were already doing hybrid and, doing it through digital tools. So that was really helpful. And that was, immediately saw the benefit of the nimbleness and flexibility we needed to switch during COVID.
What happened with the business during COVID? I mean, you had a huge workforce who couldn't work.
Well, in the run-up to COVID, we've been led to believe we'll be open, and worked quite heavily on the organisation how to trade in lockdown, and was mildly surprised not to
very very strict in New Zealand.
Again, I can't say very much.
No, I'm sure you.
So we had to pivot to learn how to be able to do click and collect out of closed stores. And
I remember this evolutions because I was working with a company of
right, I know,
of course, and every day they had a new question about it, but they did it. What did it take? About 2 weeks.
Yeah, and so we're able to pivot, and so Agile is one of the critical reasons why we're able to get through COVID as well as we did.
Yeah, right. And were you able to accelerate the Agile journey?
Yeah, and so part of we accelerated the Agile journey and over time have personalized it. But the next phase of the strategy was really about reinvesting in core systems and the systems that ran the company, apart from the new digital ones we put in, were very much the systems that Stephen Tyndall had set up in 1982.
Yeah, right. So excellent spreadsheets.
Well, we found some Fortran programming in the tech stack from 1967.
And it was good. So, it was good back when it was the only thing in town. Yeah,
exactly. But so in the early days of trying to transition systems, like when we put blue into red. We found that we were not good at that, and so Agile was most helpful in terms of those systems transformations, because instead of being IT projects, it suddenly became all of business projects.
Right.
And,
now this is an interesting thing. I mean, we've known each other for a couple of years, and what strikes me when we talk is you've got a much higher level of understanding of technology than a lot of people in your equivalent position. Is it? What's led to that? I mean, how did you identify how critically important it was?
So what I'd say is that the digital side is one thing, and that's come from the need to transform and everything I said about e-commerce and the modernization of marketing, which is now all digital. The warehouse when I first went there, had this high-low model of everything being artificially marked up to double the price it should be, and 4 of everything, and one week out of every month, that item would be marked down to half price.
Oh, right.
And,
So then it's at
you know,
proper price.
and these paper mailers were sent out to people's letterboxes, and that's an anachronistic way of marketing. So it's switched out to digital. That's something I definitely had already happened in the States, and so I've been through that transformation once already, and knew it was necessary. But the other side of it is more on the core system side, and the exception of merchandising systems which I had implemented previously, things like an ERP. I really learned a lot about doing that, and sort of been through all the painful learnings of how to do that.
Do you think you came into retail, which now is seen as very, very data driven? Do you think you came in at just the right time? It was the start of the internet.
It's like pioneered using spreadsheets and that whole in retail, and I've seen that whole transformation. But I think I was also lucky because I started on the numbers side of retail, so it's a really deep understanding of how the numbers works.
So fast forward, got through COVID and things within what you're able to say. Take us through the process over the last year.
Yeah, the last 18 months have been miserable.
Right.
I don't think people really understand the extent to which particularly the increase in the minimum wage has crippled a lot of businesses.
Right.
Nearly 50%
and there's
increase.
been a lot of increases. Yeah.
Nearly 50% increase. And it's almost double what it is in places like Spain. And that's put a lot of loading on businesses. That was exacerbated in our case by the decision to triple the capex spend to fix these antiquated systems. And there was a change in the accounting process that happened at the same time. That meant that rather than being able to amortize it and depreciate over 5 or 10 years, software as a service hit us immediately. And so only 40% is depreciable over time. 60% is up.
Goes down to the P&L, does it?
So, it became very hard to offset, any drop in gross margin. And so, October 22, it sort of like, customer confidence plummeted.
Interest rates starting to rise by that stage.
Interest rates started to rise, which is significantly important for New Zealand. And
so, all of your input costs are rising.
All of the input costs as well.
Yeah.
Shipping tripled.
Right.
And then ended up going up by a factor of 10. And so that's a major cost input when all your goods are imported. And so, with all the commitments to the systems, when sales were actually fairly buoyant, but we had to keep prices very low to be able to do that. That hit the margin, and so in the last year we tried to sort of regenerate the margin. With the cost loading made things expensive, and so it's been very, very tough trading and collapsing consumer confidence, further increase in interest rates.
And people don't understand in a role like yours. They think you just kind of shuffle the chess pieces around, but you live and breathe the business, right?
Every day.
And like you said, you don't sleep.
Yeah, it's in some ways it's like managing a sports team. You get your results all the time, and you live or die by them. And,
and one you look the wrong way once, and that can cost you a year.
That's right.
Or the sleep or something.
Yeah, and the bigger picture for me is that being in New Zealand is a privilege, and now have New Zealand citizenship, which I'm proud of. And it's given me an opportunity to spend time with my family growing up. But it comes at a cost as well. My family's back in the UK, and it can be easily 36 hours if something happens to get home.
So you decided that it was time to, because it sounds like you really enjoyed your early part of your career.
I really enjoyed. I've been lucky with the various places.
And you wanted to get back there, is that right?
And I not so much getting back there from that point of view, but when things come at a cost on a personal level, if you're enjoying what you're doing and you feel supported and successful, then it becomes worth it. I reflected on the last 18 months and just thought that it had been completely stressful, and I wasn't benefiting from my health. I wasn't enjoying it. My mother's 86, and you wonder how much time we have left with her. And I'd seen her twice
Every
in 5
birthday's a
years
celebration
in COVID, additionally, my wife's French. Our kids have got English, French, American, and Kiwi passports.
Wow.
It just feels like it's time to go back to Europe.
Yeah.
Maybe back to the US.
Yeah. So, very good wrap up on Korea, and I'd like to ask you a couple of things, and then we'll move on to some cars. So, is there a kind of a theme that's taken you through your whole career, or have you changed as you've gone through?
Customer and product has always been there. It's like matching what customers want to be able to combine it. And
so meeting demand.
It's become much more sophisticated with use of data and increasingly AI and but it's about it's about merchandising processes, it's about operational processes, it's about data and customer understanding, and then using that to be able to satisfy customer needs and wants.
And how are you making sure that you're hearing from the actual customer?
Well,
because you've seen your roles, right?
Historically, that's primary research. Vitally important to get out to stores and talk to the people in stores that deal with them every day.
Yeah.
But also sort of direct customer research is very, very important.
So you'll talk to customers themselves when you get into a store?
Absolutely. And, but equally now, the other way of knowing them en masse and being able to operationalize that knowledge is through data and building the mechanisms.
So it's interesting. So it's a combination there of the data, which is the mass, and then you need the individual anecdotes, which build up the data, don't they?
There you go.
Because if the data tells you one thing, but people on the floor are not happy, it's a different story, isn't it?
Right.
So you were pretty quick when you said that. So customer and product. So it's what they want, what they need. Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Very good. So what have you seen in business that makes the organisation run well? Culturally, from that perspective.
I think it's trust. And if your team don't trust you, I candidly, I've learned more from bad bosses than I have from good ones. I've got strong view on what you don't do, and I've seen some really awful behaviour. And for me, it's vitally important that the team trusts you. And,
isn't that interesting? Sometimes you can be drifting along, and then when you see something that does cross a boundary or doesn't meet your values expectations, all of a sudden it's like, I've learned this boundary.
That's right.
Yeah, and I guess you take that with you, do you?
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things I'm most proud of is all of the sustainability initiatives done in the warehouse group.
And that's been quite noticeable.
And it's been a real rallying call for the teams as well.
And has everyone come on that journey?
Not everyone, but a large number of people. And we started this thing called the Tomorrow Test, and asked people to call out things that didn't pass the Tomorrow Test.
Yeah.
And the amount of feedback I got, and how that game culture embedded, it's fascinating. And that's something I'm really, really proud of. And the innovative deal we did with Lodestone to supply all of our stores through solar.
I'm watching progress there.
All of the Scope 2 emissions we gone by 2026. And but the big challenge is making sourcing sustainable. That's starting to change, but with our limited scale, it's hard for us to do that on our own.
Okay, very good. Now, tell me, what was the first moment? Big jump here now. What was the first moment when you saw a vehicle and you realised that's what I want, or that's me? I'm about that.
I've always been into cars. From the days of playing with toys.
So what stands out? What's your earliest car memory?
Oh God, sort of, all my life. and helping my dad, sort of restore the varnished wood on a Morris Minor Traveller.
Oh,
when I
right.
was
Yeah.
like 3 years old.
So real grassroots stuff.
Yeah, really. And
because wood, you only get wood in the very most expensive cars, and then it was in the it was in everything, wasn't it?
It was on the outside as well.
Yeah.
So, so you can imagine.
And so,
that.
what was your first car?
Oh, my first car was inherited from my dad. It was an Austin 1800.
Okay, yeah.
And I loved that car. It was sort of big enough for all my friends. It was British Racing Green.
Oh, right.
And, it was a big old tank. But, I had lots of cheap cars that, I had to learn to keep running on my own. And so back in those days, you could actually work on your own cars.
Yeah, you can do oil and timing and things like that. Yeah.
Carburetors and
yeah. A lot of people don't know what a carburetor is.
Exactly.
No, I've seen them.
And then when I went to university, I met a guy who had an MG Midget, which we put a PDA in, and we did hill climbs with that. That was so much fun. And that sort of further sparked my passion for cars.
Yeah, right. And so what was the first performance car that you owned? The one that really got your heart racing?
Well, I had an MGB GT.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. Famous got a lot of letters.
It was unfortunately, it was Series 2 that had the rubber bumpers, and it was lime green. But I really sort of stretched myself to be able to afford that. It was 1917. So, it was already old by the time, but
doesn't really matter.
Open top motoring and and then for my early years in retail, there was still in the days of company cars before that tax loophole got closed, and so it was always sort of how much performance can you get and squeeze within the rules, and topically with the new launch of the electric Renault 5, I had a Renault 5 Turbo.
Okay.
And a number of cars, and then for a period of time I lived in London, worked in Leicester, and had the entitlement use for a new company car every 20,000 miles.
Oh, right.
And so I was driving up and back every day, so 200 miles a day. And so I had cars for every season.
Oh, very good. That must have been a joy for a young guy who's into cars.
I guess my first supercar was an Aston Martin DB9.
Oh, wow.
When I worked at Foot Locker, and we got a nice bonus one here, and that's what it went on.
Yeah. And you drive that car a lot?
Drove that car a fair amount. The quality wasn't as good as it might have been. And so I challenged the Aston Martin under lemon laws in New York, and they ended up taking it back.
Oh, really?
And gave me a Volante, the convertible. And then I got the first generation of Porsche Cayenne. Because my company car.
Yeah.
And so I had those two. At the time I was living in Manhattan, and so those two cars lived on the streets.
Yeah, I was going to say, where do you garage them? Manhattan's challenging at the best of times.
Exactly.
Very good. And so more recently than that, you've acquired a Ferrari or two, is that right?
Well, I've had a Ferrari, and I've unpacked recently a Lamborghini.
Which model was that?
A Hurricane.
Okay.
The black bearded. If there's any other colour.
You get lime green, I'm pretty sure. This guy's desperate to go in.
He is desperate.
He's not going to go.
No, okay.
This car's definitely got that holy shit, what's that kind of aspect to it. So you often
kind of bright blue as well.
Yeah. You often get a good good gap.
It is a guilty pleasure in New Zealand. One of the things there's a lot of great things about New Zealand, but the whole tall poplar syndrome is pretty odious.
Yeah. You worry even about just parking it on the street, don't you?
That, and also especially when you run a public company, your salary is enough for a public record.
Yeah. Everything's pretty
unlike,
obvious.
rich listers who, can be hundreds of times more affluent than you, who sort of seemingly get a pass. You're already targeted as a CEO, and so that's always had to be a bit under the radar.
Yeah, that's right. Very identifiable.
It's such a cultural change after 17 years in the US.
It's very different where it's
success is celebrated.
Let's just talk about that a little bit. How did you notice the tall poppy, kind of the success bashing thing in New Zealand?
It's hard not to. You're warned about it before you come, and you as you look up before I came, wow, cars are expensive in New Zealand. Oh no, they're not. You can pick up a Honda Civic for about $2,000.
Yeah, 20 years old.
Exactly. They come out of Japan.
Absolutely.
And you wouldn't want anything better than that anyway.
No, you wouldn't want to be seen.
Really?
Yeah.
So, that was culturally interesting. But it's all pervasive, and you talk to a lot of very talented Kiwis, and especially in the States, and they're like, well, why would you leave the States to go back to get abused, effectively? So there's that, and the productivity is a challenge as well. Productivity and work ethic.
Isn't it? Yeah.
It's the antithesis of the sort of work hard and strive to be successful that is, particularly part of American culture. And, you try to bring in that ethic, and people are quite resentful.
So to what extent is it the ethic itself, or are people worried about the outcome? If they work hard, then they'll be identified as a poppy?
Yeah, hard to say, but there's a lot of talented Kiwis who've made the successful career, and particularly UK, but also US, and by the time they come back here, they want to have families, and they don't want to have to work that hard. I'm generalizing.
That's interesting. Yeah, that is interesting.
There is quite a lot of that, and so it's sort of an agreement not to upset the apple.
Yeah, right. Just to kind of quietly fit into the system.
Right.
That's interesting. Oh, back to cars and enjoying. So you're allowed to enjoy a car now. But if you changing countries, I assume that it's going to be a different car.
Yeah, we should see that. The biggest frustration for me, to be honest with you, is the collapse of the electric car market.
It is bizarre, isn't it?
Since I've been here, my main car has either been a hybrid or one has been, two consecutive electrics. And for me, it's the only ethical choice for day-to-day commute. Sort of petrol cars for me these days, like this one, feels like a bit like the horse. And the analogy's
it's an anachronism for me. Absolutely, yeah.
It's like, people used to use horses for transport.
Yeah.
In the same way that you used to use petrol cars. Now people just ride horses for pleasure and as a pastime.
Yeah, that's right.
I think the petrol cars can become the same.
I do think so. And I see, a car like this, or some of those kind of collectible cars that you've had, they fill a different slot. They don't have to be transported.
Yeah. Nor would I use them every day.
So what have you driven electric-wise that you enjoy?
Well, I've got a Porsche Taycan at the moment, which is fantastic. I've had it a couple of years, but because of the changes National have made, and because of the sort of popularisation of electric cars, and a number of other factors, the depreciation is fairly low.
Oh yeah,
and to the point where I might even take it with me, which is quite shipping, but it's a lovely car. But my wife's had a series of Leafs and a series of i3s, so we're sort of full electric.
I don't know what that distance doing. Not quite a lane. No, very good. Yeah, it's interesting to see. It's the market certainly have a shake up, but locally, but also internationally. You see, there's a lot of EVs sitting around waiting to be sold, and the whole time.
Well, not in China. I was just reading today that first time more than 50% of cars sold in China were EVs last year.
Yeah, it's an obvious direction, but the issue is that there's a lot sitting in. There's a change in US policy with some tariffs, etc.
Yeah.
Problem is the battery technology is updating the whole time they're sitting there.
Yeah.
And, like the different generations of leaf, actually, people are very selective about which one. A new one that's good, but the old one, very different battery.
Right.
Yeah. Have you done any motor racing or watched any racing?
Yeah, I did a bit when I was younger. I rode race bikes a little.
Okay. Of course, you ride motorbikes as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I bought my 2 motorcycles over when I came here. Both Ducatis, Panigale and the Dialpha.
Oh,
and I didn't really use them. As my family grew. Especially
you have that kind of responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so eventually I ended up selling them.
Right.
And when I used to ride them in Chicago, I had a friend who I always rode with, so that was a regular thing. And I didn't have that sort of a friend to ride with me.
Yeah, bikes sometimes go on hold during the kind of the family years, don't they? But and then you realise why a lot of people end up going and buying a bike later in life. When I say later in life, I mean post kids. Right. So when life opens up again and gives you a few more options, and the life insurance isn't required as much.
Right.
Right. So you're bike free at the moment, are you?
Bike free at the moment.
Oh dear. Yeah. Well. You can change that pretty easily, but it's funny. New Zealand's we have very good roads, but they're short, and the weather's not great. And so when you take a bike out, you get 12 really good minutes, and then 2 hours to the next place, or a bit of, a random kilometre of gravel, which kind of takes away from the experience.
Yeah, so it's one of the great things about New Zealand that I've really enjoyed about being here. Is it's one of the last places in the world that has good roads that are not completely camera covered, and you can actually enjoy driving a little bit. In Auckland, you've got to drive a little bit out of town. There are some great runs, and the rest of the country, there's so many beautiful places to go, and I've really enjoyed getting out and getting around New Zealand.
Yeah, it's certainly. I went to Coromandel for the weekend, and I've driven those roads before, but it was still a lot of fun, especially in this country. But it was quiet. The weather was perfect. I had the top down 99% of the time, and very few people on the roads. But no, all good. So so what are your time frames from here? You
not sure. We
not in a hurry.
So not in a special hurry to get my next job. Though I'm starting to get calls. My primary desire is to get back to to Europe, and wherever I go from there. We were just over in France, and
would you work there?
So potentially, we have a property in northern Burgundy, just not far from Sears, and it's a big lake and beautiful piece of land that we're in the process of renovating the farmhouse, and so spending some time there. We're going to put our daughters into school near Paris, Christian school in Paris. I really feel the need that wherever we go, have somewhere where we can come back to, holidays and Christmas and stuff. And so that makes logical sense. Our son's 17, finishing school in November, and the school year. Don't know where he'll go to university yet, but again, it's sort of all more important to have somewhere where we can all come back to.
Well, France would be a nice place to spend some time.
Yes.
They've got some good retail chains there too, don't they?
Yeah, they've got a few interesting ones.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Again, when you're sort of a day and a half away from Europe, it feels like you're a long way here. Recently, on the way over to Europe, took a flight from Chicago. Less than 7 hours to Paris. It feels like a domestic flight.
Yes.
Speaking.
Yeah, it's so kind of a.
I wouldn't write off being back in the US or anywhere in Europe.
And I guess if you're looking at something that does have global footprint, then you want to be near the centre, but it's going to vary the actual locations where you can actually where you can base yourself and stuff. Now this is the street that I grew up on.
Oh really? Bell Road?
Yeah, Bell
Okay.
Road. I was at the other end, but it's pretty close to your place.
Yes, it is. Walk the dog at the park every day.
Yeah. Goodness me, it's it's a lot more cars parked down here than I remember.
A lot of
construction. Very good. Yeah, so itchy feet starting to come in, are they?
Sorry?
Itchy feet are starting to come in. You start feeling like doing something.
Yeah. I've got plenty of things I want to do before I work. As I discussed with you, I want to do a course in AI.
Yeah.
There's some really interesting ones.
And where would you study that?
Well, there's a good one Oxford side, good one at MIT, good one at Stanford.
Yeah.
You could do them in mixture of ways, in person, online or hybrid. I'll see. Got a couple of books I want to write. A couple of startup ideas.
Oh wow.
So
it's
the main thing is to relocate right now. I'm trying to lose stuff.
You start making a few notes and trim down on your possessions.
I'm trying to unburden myself of all of the crap that gets accumulated.
Very good. Well, back at your place.
Right.
I will drop you off. I'll drop out anything that's identifiable. I don't think you'll be able to tell anything anyway. I wonder what this person's doing.
I don't seem to. Sure.
There you go.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
It was a lot of fun. Great to see you. How much longer do you have this one?
I return it on Friday, and I'll just grab your mic there. Return it on Friday, but I don't really feel like it because it's really fun. Awesome, thank you very much. Oh, there's a little button just down there for your thumb. Yeah.
Well, thanks
very much.
Take care.
Yeah, very good.
Stay in touch.
Yeah, we'll do. See ya.